Hey everybody, this is Keith from the Mercer County Library System. In this demonstration, I'll be going over 10 steps to create a PowerPoint presentation. Now, as you may or may not know, PowerPoint is a software that allows you to put together presentations by building a number of slides, and these slides are meant to be projected for an audience. Now, the beauty of PowerPoint is that, first of all, it makes it very easy to build eye-catching, memorable, and even fun presentations. But more importantly, it allows you to do that very quickly. So today I'll be going over 10 steps to quickly create an engaging PowerPoint presentation, and I'll be including a few other useful tips along the way. For this demonstration, I'm using PowerPoint 2013. If you're using a more recent version such as 2016 or 2019, or even an older version like 2007 or 2010, you'll find that while the interfaces may look a bit different, the tools and locations of those tools are generally the same. Now I'm going to be splitting up these 10 steps into two parts. In this first video, I'll be discussing how to organize your presentation information before you even start your PowerPoint, creating an engaging title slide that catches the audience's attention, creating new slides and choosing appropriate slide layouts for the rest of your presentation, applying a consistent design theme to that presentation, and finally, step 5, inputting text into the slides. In the second video, we'll be discussing the other remaining 5 steps. Okay, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to relaunch PowerPoint because I want to show you what it looks like from the very beginning. Again, this is PowerPoint 2013. So on the left side here, we have a number of recent files, a number of recent presentations that we created with PowerPoint. And this is similar to what you may have seen in other Office applications. Now on the right side, we have a number of different templates. Okay, and these are pre-built and pre-designed presentations that you could use if you want. But today we'll be building from scratch. So I'm going to come up here and click on blank presentation. After we select blank presentation, we're brought to the main work area where, as a default, PowerPoint is giving us a title slide. Okay, so again, this is the actual slide that you'll be building. This is your main work area. And on the left here, we have what's called a slide navigation menu. And as we build our presentation, you'll see that it's going to show me each and every slide as a thumbnail over here on the left, just to give me an overall view of the entire presentation. And then, of course, at the top, as we've seen in other Microsoft Office applications, we have our ribbon with all of our tools organized by tabs, and within each tab, a number of different groups, such as clipboard, slides, font, etc. Now, I've already launched PowerPoint, but step number 1 actually requires us to do something before we even launch PowerPoint at all. So in this case, step number 1 is going to be to organize your information. So let me show you what I've done here. I'm going to actually go over to Microsoft Word. And as you can see, I've created a PowerPoint outline. Now, you can always create your PowerPoint in PowerPoint itself. If you want to just build it slide by slide, that's totally fine. But I find it useful to organize my information first. Doing this ahead of time can help you better envision the sequencing and layout of your slides. And you'll also notice that I've really taken the time to organize this very neatly and in the kind of outline format I want to use in this presentation. Notice the bulleted style list here with a number of different headings. So each of these will be their own slide. So basically, I put my information together exactly how I want it to appear in the slides. Doing so now can save you time later when you're using PowerPoint, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. So now that I have my presentation information organized, I come to step number 2, create an engaging title slide. So let me go back to PowerPoint. And here it is. Here's that title slide. Okay, what we're looking at here, where it says click to add title and click to add subtitle, these are called placeholders. These dashed boxes are called placeholders. And they're basically just there to guide you as to what you should put in those areas. So it's very simple. You just click on the placeholder and start typing. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my title, which is going to be threatened species. And down here in the subtitle area, I'll click on that placeholder. And here's a good place. If you had a subtitle, you could put it there. Otherwise, this is a good place to put who you are and maybe the year that you put this together, or maybe the more specific date. However you want to do that is fine. Now, as a default, you'll notice that PowerPoint, if I look up here in my font group, it's putting this in the Calibri font type, which may not be the most exciting font type. So I'm going to highlight my text and actually choose a different one. And remember, you can just point at all these different font types and it will give you what's called a preview on the right there. So I'll click this one. And I'll do the same thing to my subtitle. Oops, right there. Now, just to give it a little more pizzazz, I'll come up here to the contextual tab up here where it says Drawing Tools. And under that, there's a Format tab. I'm going to click on that Format tab. And you'll see here that one of the groups is called Word Art Styles. And this is just a quick way to give your font just a little more of a kick, a little more visual appeal. So I'm going to highlight this again. I'll come up here to these different word art styles. If you click on this little triangle with a line over it in the corner here, that's the More menu. It gives you more options. I'll choose this one here. It's kind of a little shadow. And then maybe I can come up here to text fill. You could always adjust colors if you'd like. Actually, I think black looks just fine. Okay, and then I'll leave my subtitle alone. That just, again, just gives it a little more appeal when you look at it. Now, the last thing I want to do with my title slide is put something in the background that really pops. Okay, this white background is very boring. It doesn't really invite you into the presentation, at least in the way that I would want it to. So the first thing I need to do is go to the Format Background menu. Now, in this case, since I'm dealing with the entire background of my slide, what I'm really doing is editing the entire design of the slide itself. So that's going to be under the Design tab up here. And over here on the right, in the Customize group, I'll click on the Format Background. And you'll notice on the right side, this Format Background pane opens up. And that's where I can go to adjust my background. Now in this pane, I can choose to give my background a solid color, a gradient fill, or some kind of texture, or a pattern. But the one I actually want to do is a picture, which is right here. I could actually put an entire picture in my entire background. So I'm going to click on that button there. Now to insert a picture, I need to come down here where it says Insert Picture From, and we have two options for File and Online. Clipboard, as you can see, is grayed out right now. Now, File would be if I had this picture saved on my computer. Right now, I don't. So I need to look for a picture. So I'm going to look for one online. And this will launch this dialog box. And basically, I can just search for any picture I want. I'll press Enter. So So as you can see, it brought up a number of different pictures that relate to what I typed in the search box. Now, just to note very quickly, where this says Creative Commons only, that is a filter that refers to the Creative Commons license, which means that these pictures are free to use and distribute without having to get any sort of copyright permission. So I'm going to scroll down here, look at my options. And sometimes you have to play around with this a little bit. It's a little bit of trial and error to see what looks best. I'll select this one here. I'll click Insert. And as you can see, it put the entire picture as my background. Now you could always adjust the picture a bit. So in my case, it might look a little too bright. I'm going to come down here to this transparency tool on the right, and I'll just move that up a little bit. And as you can see, just kind of fades it out a little bit. So it's not too much. You can still read the text in front of it. And that looks pretty good there. And if you look up here at the top of the format background pane, there are a couple other options for artistic effects, picture corrections, and picture color. So you can always adjust it using these controls as well. But for now, I'll just leave it just as is because I think it looks just fine. And since I'm done with that, I'm going to come up here to the X and close this format background menu. And there we go. Now we have a great looking title slide. So again, just to quickly review, when you're creating that engaging title slide, do things like adjust your font type and maybe even the size, just to make it a little more appealing. You could also change things like the font color. Let me click here. Actually, let me go to that special format tab. You can adjust the text fill, text outline, things like that. You could even apply word art styles, all sorts of things to make that text pop out just a little bit more. And also, you might want to format the background as I've done here with some sort of neat looking fill, whether it's a solid fill, a pattern, or a picture like you see here. So now I'm done with my title slide, and now I can move on to the rest of my slides, where I'll be inputting my information on my topic. All that stuff we looked at in that initial outline in step 1, that's what I'm going to be putting in the remaining slides. So now we're going to be moving on to step number 3. Create a new slide and choose an appropriate slide layout. And we're going to do that by going back to the Home tab and going to the Slides group right here, and you'll see the New Slide button right here. And as you can see, it gives me a number of different slide layout types. Now, depending on how well you organize your information in step number 1, you could choose each and every layout ahead of time. You simply click on the layout you want, and it will add it to your presentation, as you can see. And you could just keep adding down the line if you wanted to. And don't worry, you can always change the layouts, even if you've already filled in the slide with text and graphics. In this case, though, I'll just create each slide one by one after I've finished each one. So judging by what I have in my outline, I'm going with the layout called Title and Content. And as you can see here, we have another blank slide with our placeholders, but in a slightly different format. I have a title, placeholder here, and then a placeholder down here where I'm going to put it in my text. Okay, each point I want to emphasize will be down here in this box. Now, just like with the title slide, I want to make this slide look more interesting and grab the audience's attention. Also, for the sake of consistency, the design of this slide should be the same design as all the slides that follow. So rather than choose colors, shapes, font sizes, etc. from scratch, I'm going to implement step number 4, which is to apply a design theme. Design themes really come in handy when you're pressed for time, and also if, like me, you're not the most artistic person in the world. So our design themes are going to be found up here in the Design tab. As you can see, there's a Themes group right here, and with a bunch of different pre-built and pre-designed design themes. And there's that menu again for more, for even more options. So I'm just going to click one of these. I'm going to select this one here. And once I select this theme, Notice how it applies immediately. Now, if you look at my slide navigation menu, you might notice here, in fact, I'll click on it. It actually also took effect on the title slide. So I'm going to go back and fix that in just a little bit. But for now, let's work on slide number 2. And as you can see, what a design theme does is it gives it some sort of accent or graphic, a number of different colors, okay? But it also changes your font size and type, and even perhaps the alignment of your font, or excuse me, the alignment of your text. Sometimes it might be centered, it might be to the right. It all depends on how that design theme was built. So a design theme encompasses a number of things: colors, designs, font types, font sizes, and alignment. And you're not necessarily stuck with the design theme as it currently is. Remember, you could always move these things around. You could even delete placeholders if you want. I can move things. I can adjust things really however I want. The design theme just gives you a place to start. What I can also do is come up here to the variants group and adjust the color scheme and other things about the design theme. And I'll click on the more option here. I'll go to colors. And as you can see, I can choose from a number of different color schemes. I'm going to go with this one here, green, yellow. I'll click on that. And as you can see, you can also do different font groups, effects, and all sorts of things. But for now, I'll just change the color and I'll leave it at that. Now that I've selected my design theme, I can move on to step number 5, which is to just go ahead and input my text. Now, of course, if you're doing this from scratch, you would just click on the placeholder and start entering your text just as we did with the title slide. However, since I already organized this very neatly in my outline, I'm just going to go over to that outline. And I can actually just copy and paste. Let me just hit backspace to get rid of that extra line. And as you can see, when I do paste, it's conforming to the font type and size of that design theme. So I don't have to readjust it. And I'll click, excuse me, let me go back to my outline. And I'm going to highlight this entire section here with all the bulleted points. I'll copy that, come back over to my presentation. I'll paste it into this box. And as you can see, again, it conformed to the font type and size of the design theme. And it retained all the different bullets and things like that. So now that slide 2 is done, I'm going to go ahead and finish my remaining 3 slides. So first I'll go to the Home tab, come here to the Slides group, click on New Slide, and again I'm going to go with Title and Content. I'll come to my outline, go to my next slide, and copy and paste that information. So there's slide 3, another new slide, Title and Content. And finally, slide number 5. And there we go. Now I've just simply copied and pasted from my outline into the PowerPoint slides. And now I have all my text done already. Okay, very simple. Now notice here that this final slide, I have a slide called Final Thoughts. So when creating a PowerPoint presentation, it's generally a good idea to have a closing slide that either reviews what you've discussed in the previous slides or offers some kind of reflection or closing thoughts, much like you see here. So a couple more things I want to do very quickly. I noticed that in a couple of these slides, I had these red lines, which indicate what the program thinks is a spelling error. These are just scientific names. So I'm just going to go to my review tab, go to the spelling tool in the proofing group here. And I'm just going to ignore these because these are all actually spelled correctly. Great. And actually, this slide I'm on right now, I don't like the way the name is going onto a second line. So in this case, I'm just going to shrink the font a little bit. Let's see if we can get it to one line. I think that looks good. Great. Now, last but not least, before I'm done with my text here, last thing I need to do is go back to that title slide. And as I said before, when we applied that design theme, it applied it to this title slide as well. So I actually don't mind the way this looks here, the way it changed the alignments and even the font size of these things. So one thing I want to do though is go back to my background and get rid of the accent colors. That's a little distracting. So to do that, you can either go back to the design tab and click on format background over here in the customize group. You could also right click on the background of the slide itself and click on format background here. And from here, you'll see an option for hide background graphics. I'm going to click on that. And then I'll just close that format background pane. And let's see if I can get Pine Barrens onto one line. I'll just press enter. That looks a little better to me. I like the way Pine Barrens is on its own separate line. Okay, so now that's fixed. And now what we have through these first 5 steps, we've created the bones of a really good presentation. We've organized our information ahead of time so that we can more easily put it into our PowerPoint presentation. We've created an engaging title slide by doing things like changing the font type, applying word art, and applying a background. We selected our new slides and chose the appropriate slide layouts for the kind of information we have in our presentation. We applied a consistent design theme. And of course, we input our text into the slides and just did a little review to check for any spelling errors. And we also got rid of those background graphics on the title slide, just to clean up a little bit. So now, in the next video, I'll be going over the remaining 5 steps. We'll be inserting pictures into our slides. We'll be applying slide transitions, which I'll discuss in more detail. We'll be applying animations to our content and graphics. We'll rehearse our timings, and finally, start our slideshows. So thanks for watching, and take care.